Call the meeting to order. If you would please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes for the July 1st council meeting?
Second.
So properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes for the July 1st council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Gary, Hagerstown.
Heart of Hagerstown. We held a paint recycling event, latex paint recycling event in July with WUR board. They collected about 1,200 gallons of latex paint from the area, so they were very pleased with that turnout. So that was that event. We have Hometown Christmas is being worked on. Some of you probably have heard some of that. They are planning lots of new events for that weekend. And other than that, that is what I got with Hart.
Have any other public comments this time? Yes, sir.
My name is Brad Smith. I live in Eastern Grace Heights. Several of us are concerned about some electricity issues, and it can be now or later after the initial or at the end, but I think there's several things we'd like to ask and questions and concerns to try to understand why we continue to have. This last month, we lost power in the same area for 4 days, different times, but we would like to ask some questions about that.
Okay. What questions do you have? Because this is time for public comment.
Okay. We don't understand, I know we have a problem with the easement and with town and power. A lot of it is just routine maintenance that could be done, whether it's trimming or clean up the easements. And I know there's a lot of requirements and probably cost, but I also talked to AP today, and I guess what I'm confused is I've heard other comments about not having enough money. One, I know that the state allows, or you can actually submit to get a, what's it called, a grant, or with AEP, since you need money. So I don't know if the town tries or attempts to do that, because when I talked to AP today, they said, one, I talked to first a supervisor, a lady, and then a supervisor. They didn't understand there was issues because they said, well, we had no idea. So I was trying to find and understand to connect the dots. But if there's money and there's available that you can do in the fiscal year with the government or the state, since those are on the Indiana sites, that you can actually request or try to get money if you're having issues, even if it's infrastructure like water, that some of the issues are here. But I'm just focused on the electricity, is why, and if it has or tried. And two, I would guarantee that probably people here, I know there's a charge for the fire hydrants. People would probably pay another $10 or $20 on their electric bill if you don't have the money to clean up that easement and use it as surcharge like a lot of electric companies do for maintenance, because the maintenance is being neglected. And that's part of the problem. And I've heard people make comments about, well, it's up to the homeowner. It is, but a lot of homeowners move or they sell, and that's been there for a long time. And some of those trees are like, I don't know, 100 years old. So that easement has been there for many, many years. So I guess our concern is, why is there not a plan to at least try to attack it and go from piece to piece to piece? Not the whole town. Right now we're concerned with Eastland Grace Heights, but it's kind of a sore because it continues to happen, and all I see is Band-Aids to try to put them together, and it needs to be addressed with the council.
To clarify, you said you contacted AEP, is that correct?
Right, so I can get educated.
Yeah, so AEP provides us the power.
Correct.
They just, that's all they do. So we pay them, they deliver the power to our substation, and then It is the town's responsibility through our utility department to maintain the lines and any of the infrastructure within the town limits. So to help provide some clarification in that aspect is what we can do, and that there are several grants through the state. We've been running through one for the water and wastewater project with that. Chris, you know?
There is an electric one that I was just made aware of within the past month. I am aware of that now. I have not applied for that. It is for infrastructure improvements. I don't know if it covers tree trimming as well, but it is for infrastructure improvements. I will look into that further. Joe Favorite, our electric lead, is here tonight. But we do have a lot of different, you mentioned easements. We have mini barns and easements. We have trees and easements. We have fences and easements. We have shrubs and easements. I think over the years, as someone mentioned, I think probably the original property owners paid a lot of attention to the easements, but as they've been sold and changed hands, that's kind of become very tricky to work around. I do know that we're getting a backyard bucket truck, which is going to allow us to actually go in through people's gates and trim trees and maintain trees that way. It's still not ideal, because ideally it would be taking back our easements to where we were able to get our bucket truck down alongside of each of the poles, but that is going to destroy a lot of what people have done in their backyards to regain those easements. I don't know if Joe, if you want to elaborate any more on that, but.
So starting either next week or the week after, we're renting a backyard on tracks. It'll go through a 36-inch gate, 61-foot height. We're going to try to eliminate as much as possible. To remind everybody, the electric department is 2 people. It's very, very difficult for us with 2 people to maintain every tree in Hagerstown. We do the best we can do, but starting, like I said, either next week or the week after, you guys are going to see us in and out. My goal is, it's month-by-month rental. My goal is to hopefully get as far as possible within 3 weeks. I mean, we're not going to be able to do all of Grayson Heights in 3 weeks. We understand that, but then we'll be able to get and reevaluate with Chris and see if we can extend another month and allow the time. But your guys' area that you're concerned about is 98% of the problem in Grayson Heights is all up through there. And that's where we're starting, is on the very far south drive, basically, and going to Jones Road and behind Danny's and your house over there. And then we're gonna start doing access in the middles if we get far enough and get time allotted with the machine.
Is there administrative issues with ordinances for people putting stuff in the easements?
It's occurred. We even have one garage that's in an easement out there in Grayson Heights.
How'd that happen?
That's right.
That's what I'm concerned.
If that
At
happened,
this point, just pull it out and get it out of the way.
if that happened, if you've got that stuff out there and there is ordinances or there is a administrative rule that says that needs to go, then it needs to go. We need to start taking steps to do that, whether it's a
Yes.
bush, house,
Yes.
tree, whatever. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me that we've allowed that to happen out through the years. I don't care how many times the property changes hands.
And I think that we need to evaluate easement width, because at one time, and I don't know if it still is, the easement was super narrow.
It's 5 foot on every property line,
Yeah, it's
front,
10.
side, and backyard.
It's 5, 5, and 10. I agree.
So it's 5 foot on each side of the pole, is that what you're saying? I've never looked
5
at
foot
it.
on each side of the property line, depending on where the poles are set at.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we're being asked to bring in, you know, a
Big equipment.
big machine, a chipper, a dump truck, you know, you can't work within inside 10 feet, period. It's impossible.
You know.
You gotta think, you're on a 3-phase power line, where all their problems are is on a 3-phase power line, you're at 8.5 feet at the cross arm.
I'm not questioning your ability.
No, I know.
don't know how all that crap got put in those easements.
That's right.
Yeah, well, and I would love for all you guys to come and join me on a walk one day, and we'll go walk all this stuff, and I'm talking, I bet you in Grayson Heights alone,
You'll get
15 mini barns, 6, 8 fences, 2 or 3 permanent structures that are in the easement, multiple concrete pads that you can't access fences. I mean, fences are ungodly. The fences are gone crazy.
I was out there with when there was a big power
That's-
outage with these
yep.
guys. It took them almost 2 hours just to get the crap out of the way before they could even get back there to work on it. I mean, it took
We had to remove a fence.
Took a
we had to
backhoe.
put
So what you're
fence
saying,
down.
is this open? Can we speak?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, we're at fault for the power problems, right?
No, you're not, you're not that.
No, we're not.
These guys need to have access to get back there, but if there's barns and fences that they've got to take down and pull out.
This,
You know,
I
I
can
feel
make
for
this
you
has
guys.
been going
I
on
never
for
get
years.
power
This just
out,
stopped this
so.
summer. This has been going on for years.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I have a couple questions. First question, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, and don't mean to, but obviously.
That's part of the deal.
When we're looking at easements, what can we do as a town with that easement? So let's say there is a barn, there is a fence in that easement. What are we legally able to do with that particular easement? And that's my first question, sir, if you'd answer that.
So the easement is a legal right that's passed, through the deed. So they're granting you the ability to do what you need to do to maintain those lines. So if anyone, whether it's a property owner or someone else, is doing something to impair that easement, then it can be enforced through a court order to say, you've got to remove whatever's there. The garage and a permanent structure, same thing. I'm gonna have to look and see, because obviously that's a little different deal. If you're tugging a mini barn a few feet out of the way, that's one thing, or if there's a flower bed that's gonna be disrupted, okay. A permanent garage that's been built, that's probably gonna be a battle. The homeowner's probably gonna say, I got it permitted, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. You're gonna get into all those kinds of things to dig into the history, but the easement is a legal right that passes, essentially the property owner at some point gave, and it's what's called runs with the land. So no matter who the owner is, that easement continues on. So whatever you need to do, there is going to be a mechanism to do it. And that's should be somewhat independent of our ordinances, because that right exists within the property records.
So question 1A, then I have another question. Question 1A is, do we, I guess it'd be in good faith, is we would go to these property owners and say, you have a X, Y, or Z in the easement. We will give you 2 weeks to clear that, or you will be in violation of the easement. And then at that point, they either move it, or what can then we do at that point? Just continue to fine them for that, or can we actually move it, since we would need to gain access to that easement?
Well, I'd have to confirm the exact process. We probably need to involve a court
Yep.
and say, essentially put that before the court and say, here's the deed, here's the easement, here's our right, here's where, this person has a fence or a whatever. And I would want a court order that a judge could say, Town of Hagerstown, you are authorized to move this out of the way, so that then you're not, in a battle. Now, in theory, you should be able to do that anyway.
Right.
But I'd probably want the safety of a court order to say, we went through a process, we gave you notice,
Yep.
all those things, and you didn't do what you needed to do. Therefore, we're going to move it. We're going to charge you for whatever cost we have.
And my second question is, we're talking about preventative maintenance sometimes here, because that's been the biggest issue. Is we know there's trees that'll come down during storms. Now that's reactive. So if we want to be proactive, a lot of these trees are obviously on people's properties. So in terms of an easement, let's say we have a tree that's dead, or limbs are leaning into our easement or into our line. What recourse do we have to clean up that in terms of preventative maintenance?
So legally, if a tree is overhanging your easement,
Yep.
you go straight up from the easement, and you can definitely maintain those things. What I would then encourage you to do is have a dialogue with that homeowner and say, look, this entire limb is dead back, 4 feet onto your property. Can we
Yep.
just, you good with us cleaning all this up?
Yep.
And get permission and go ahead and do that in that same pass.
Okay.
But you would have the right to go, clean anything in your easement, as high as you needed to go.
I have a question. Doesn't that show on the title search?
It does. I think what happens is, like what some of the folks have touched on, is as ownership changes, and then homeowners looking at a nice strip of green grass and thinks, well, that'd be a great place for a flower bed, or that's the edge of my property, I'm going to put the mini barn there. Probably don't mean to do that intentionally, but yes, it's going to be in the deed and be on title search that owner at some point granted an easement to the town of Hagerstown for utility maintenance.
Yes, sir. Question?
He answered it. It's exactly, it is in Wayne County. I mean, it's part of the county, they have that information. And, I mean, when you look at it on the GIS and you look at properties, it will tell you that that barn should not be there, that pad should not be there, and it should pretty easy, black and white, to, without all the attorney, fees and stuff, that the county knows what should be there or not when they
So
do their appraisals and stuff.
just an idea, Chris, and Joe, obviously you're a big part of this as well. And obviously council can say yay or nay on this like myself. It might be a good idea to walk Grayson Heights, if you will, find the problem structures that are in the easements first, and then we could compile that, and then if we need to give John or whomever, get the letters out to the residents, say, hey, you're in violation of the easement, you'll need to move this, we'll give you X amount of time, or however we want to play that. Then the next thing I would say after that, during that same walk, and while we're inspecting, if we do see these dead limbs or dead trees that are within what I would call a fall, so wind comes over, blows it over, if we designate those, now we go to those residents as well and say, hey, you do have a tree here that's dead or within a fall zone of taking up some of our power. I think that would be also another good practice to have. And then that way, if we start dotting these I's and crossing these T's, maybe down the road here, we won't have as many electrical outages, but it's going to be one of those things that there's going to be, I'm sure, quite a few residents that are going to probably be unhappy, but I think that's the way we have to do this.
No,
be proactive.
Yeah, this time of year, every year, I do go drive around and look for trees that are dead, and then send out letters with the tree grant, for removal. I tried. Usually about 50% of them respond.
Okay.
You can still drive around and see a lot of dead trees around, obviously, but I mean, that does help some. I tried to do it this time of year before all the leaves start falling off, because you can easily tell that it's, and I usually take a picture of it, that it's a dead tree. So we do that. I think the biggest thing about the easements right now is we need to really establish what our plan of action is going to be as far as a fine. If your mini barn is not moved within 30 days, you'll have a $1,000 fine. Or I don't know what the fine's going to be. We need to establish that, and that's something that you need to do. The council needs to do. So.
Where I live, that's a whole different scenario than what Grayson Heights is. I know there's some barns and some fences and so forth. I live on Perry Court. My property butts up against the high school. The high school property has tons of dead ash trees within the lawns, within the easement. They are falling, they're dangerous. I had 2 fell in the last 7 days at my house. Luckily, they didn't hit my structures or anybody else's. My neighbor, unfortunately, can't be here. Farmers had a similar issue. So we don't have stuff in the way, but is the high school responsible for those trees in that easement? Or is the town, being they're in the easement, can they cut those ash trees to get them out of the way?
That's the question, John.
They're in our easement.
And that's where,
If it's in your easement, shouldn't,
I think solely in the easement, and again, that's 5 feet on each side of the way I hear it, it's 5 feet on each side of the pole. And the problem is, here's the problem, just like your guys' last power outage in Grayson Heights, the tree that fell and took down the lines was 25 feet from the lines, but it was a 30-foot tree, so it comes down and takes them out. And where Jamie's talking about, there's a bunch of them.
and they're within,
I don't know that they're within the 5
they're
feet.
close, but they belong to the high school, but yet.
Correct.
It's just a mess there. And granted,
It is.
East Grayson Heights has got it way worse than what I do, by all means. But we have a problem as well. But ours doesn't really have the issues with the stuff in the way as far as the fences and the sheds and so forth. There's access to it. It's hilly back there, not easy. But we have a scenario as well, but it's different than theirs.
Can I just say again, I don't want to make everybody upset and not like me, but if he's got the same issue, we're talking about the same issue, if you raise for like a surcharge for $10, $10 for every customer for a year, I guarantee you'll have $150,000 to start fixing some of this stuff up.
I'm not sure it's a money issue.
It's not a money
I'm not
issue.
sure
Okay.
where that came from.
It's
And
not a money issue.
I will say that I
I say we've
have,
got a boatload of money, don't take that wrong, but I'm not sure.
It's more of knowing how to spend it. Like you're saying, your neighbor's property. We also have a property on Grayson Heights where there are
It's
Tons of dead trees that are falling on our easement, and we did have that priced out. It's going to be like $70,000 to remove those trees. So while it's not necessarily a money issue, it's knowing where the best place is to spend it.
They have two people, understandably, and cutting trees is a very labor-intensive project, I understand. Can they look at subcontractors that can come in here and do a section at a
And I
time?
have. Here's the deal. Like Asplund, those companies do not want to come to Hagerstown. We're not big enough. They would want to come in and say, we're doing all of
One
Hagerstown.
law, yeah.
Because they won't come and do the 300 foot at Grayson Heights or the 400 foot at the high school. We've had two other contractors that did turn in bids, or they gave me a quote. They didn't turn in bids. They gave a quote, and the number, I mean, is insanely high. I mean, it's
So
just,
how high? What are we talking about?
I mean, $70,000 for a few hundred feet.
300 feet?
Yeah, I mean, not very much.
It's 300 feet equivalent to a city block, right?
So,
Yeah.
is this something you can do? I don't talk about your time, but do you have the skill to do it?
I have the skill to do it.
He needs the
What are you
equipment.
doing on Saturdays?
He needs the man.
I mean, I'm only one person, so to get other people to do it on Saturdays, I don't know. I can't speak for them.
Just want to say this, if you have your money, why pay somebody else? You've got the skill to do it.
Well, I agree. And I mean, I agree with that. But I mean, then that's fine. I'm okay with doing
You've got a
it
couple
all.
other people that can hit it on Saturdays,
Yeah.
pay you overtime, go out there and do that, get it done.
Yeah.
And here's what I want all you folks to know too. I seriously don't want to come out there and have to fix the same power all the time either. I mean, I feel for you guys, I really do. But to hit on Jamie earlier, it's not
You can't.
everybody's fault out there, but like behind, south of your house, there's not much back there besides a hill that's like this. You can't even set a bucket truck on it. And then by Kathy's house, it gets, and any time that it's not August or September, it's a swampland.
Yep.
So that one's super. The west side of Graceland Heights is almost inaccessible down where the power lines are too, because it goes down to the flat, and it's super tough too. It's not solely the sheds and the fences and stuff like that. Just the area that we are having the problem with right now is the sheds and the fences and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so
These guys' area is from the south end up to your house and then down to the main drive. That whole section right there is where is the biggest tree issue, and it's because of the accessibility over the years. I mean, and like somebody said earlier, it's not something that's just happened in the last 4 weeks, obviously. I mean, this is years compounded. Yeah, this is years compounded on of not getting to it.
Well, it sounds like your crew needs a lot more help.
Yeah.
Can they
For volunteer.
hire temporary help?
Maybe a deputy.
And then my question, why can't we hire a crew to help you? I mean, is that not to say, hey, we're gonna hire somebody for 30 days, 60 days, somebody needs a job and put them to work doing that? I don't know, I'm just reaching because it blows me away that one, we've let all this stuff get into the middle of this easements throughout the years. Multiple years, obviously. Clearly, the electric department's aware of it because they're naming off every property out there that's got the problem.
I'm aware of that. I walk it every 3 days. I gotta walk the whole Grace Heights when the power goes out.
So,
Because I gotta look and see where the problem's at.
So to sum this up,
term solution, is there another way of rerouting electricity out there?
in another box with a bow, obviously we have an easement issue with some properties. John kind of gave us an idea of where we could go with that. Maybe it's also including, inside of that, if you don't remove this within so many days, you'll get a fine. Then the next thing is some preventative maintenance that we can do. However, because of the topography of the area, there's going to be certain areas that we're just not going to be able to get to. So we might be able to eliminate, and again, I'm just throwing crazy numbers, I'll say we can eliminate 30% or maybe 40%. What's the number of preventative trees or limbs or whatnot? Maybe we can do that, but there's still going to be some issues there. So my thought process is very simple. We start working on this now, get some type of ordinance in place. Then when it comes time to have crews, then that's when we go, okay, Joe, what do you think we need? Do we need 4 or 5 people? Then let's find that in the budget somewhere where we can get these 4 or 5 people here and we can start working on that preventative maintenance. But I think before we do that, this easement thing's got to get cleaned up. I mean, that's, I think, priority number 1. and there's gonna be probably some,
Sounds like it's already, the process is already established.
yes, it does sound like.
I mean, the first thing I would do is I'd send out letters to
Yep.
those owners and say, hey, this is in the easement, and, you know, give them 2 weeks, 30 days, whatever, to move it. At least to get that clock going, so these guys can get in and do as much as they can. And then the ones that drag their feet or cause a problem, then we amp it up, and if we have to file something in Richmond, we will, and get a court order. But you have an easement, and so I'd want to see that original easement language, because there was a question about the maintenance. That all ought to be spelled out within the original grant of the easement.
Yep.
Of who does what the easement's for, you know, all those things. And then we would enforce that with a court order, essentially.
So is that something that, I mean, I hate to put on your guys' plate, but I think in the long term, this is going to work out. Maybe you guys get together, figure out which residents are having easement issues. We'll get those letters out. I mean, is it spelled out how much time they can get, or can we just say, we give you 2 weeks, we give you a month? What's your thoughts on that, John?
I would say for now, you're not involving the court, or you're not
Yeah.
really citing any authority. You can see visually that there's something in that easement. I'd give them whatever time you think is reasonable. I mean, if it's a flower bed or something like that, it's really just a courtesy, or a shrub, that's not a big deal. If it's a mini barn, a garage, a fence,
Yep.
then it's gonna take some, you know, I think you need to give those folks a little more time,
Right.
realistically.
If the majority of the overgrowth, is it coming from the woods behind us? Or is it coming from our property?
Your guys' area is from the wood side more so than anything.
But then that belongs to the person that owns the wood.
But-
We can't help that.
Yeah, well, yeah, right, I mean, we can't, in theory, there's nobody that can help anything on a tree relation, you know what I mean? Because the problem that we're into now is that everything is so far into the lines that, as a homeowner, you can't go out there and trim the trees anyways, because it's a safety concern at this point now. But in your guys' particular area, yes, 90% of the problems because we went on like a month stretch behind your guys' house, and that was coming from the east, yes. Now the stuff right now today, like I said, the last one was a tree, it was way down on the southeast corner down there, but the other stuff it's just limbs and the lines making contact and blowing two fuses.
Well, the mulberry tree belongs to the people that own the woods, that we took part of it down.
Right.
We did that to keep the water, the swampiness.
Yep.
But we did not take the whole tree down
Correct.
because we didn't have the ability to do that. Our
Yeah.
chainsaw wasn't
Right.
good enough to do that.
And that's,
But if you guys want to take that rest of the way down, you're more than welcome to. And then there's another tree that could be an issue between Bobby and Cindy and us that needs to come down. You're more than welcome to take that down, because that doesn't belong to us and it's in the easement way. It doesn't affect us.
Okay.
So go ahead and take them
yeah, I
down.
mean, that's the thing, is as long as we can get it defined on the easements themselves, that's my biggest thing is I understand the trees and stuff. I understand, I mean, I don't want the trees to look terrible after we're done either. But also, I don't want you guys to be out power. I don't want to be out there when it's raining and freezing cold any more than you guys want me to be there. But once we get a defining limit on the easement, I mean, as far as I'm concerned right now, if it's growing, it's coming out. I mean, because again, even if we leave the shrubbery that is only going to be 8 feet tall, you still can't access with a bucket truck. You know what I mean? If it's down through there. And I'm not saying your house. I mean, it's just in general.
We bought that where the easement was, and that we had to keep that maintained.
Right.
When we closed on, but I bought back in '97,
Yeah.
'96,
Yeah.
'97.
I mean, and I think honestly, a lot of it is miscommunication on, especially like the fences. Fences, I think, or people don't think about what we're blocking with a fence. The sheds and stuff, I mean, that's kind of like, you got to have a little bit of knowing that you can't go around that, you know, I mean, but like I said, once we get a defining limit on the easements, as far as we're taking it back to that limit, and, you know, and I'm going to work with everybody. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, if there's a dead tree limb in there, hey, we can, if you guys are okay with it, we'll take it down when we're there. I mean, you know, if it's within what we're working in and stuff, I mean, that's absolutely.
And you said the other area, there's some area out there that's limited because of the terrain.
Yeah.
How much is that come into place? Is it
With a regular bucket truck, it limits a fairly decent amount. With the track machine, I I don't know the limitations on the track machine 100% yet because I've never had one, never ran one. But I think that we can make it, I think we can make it work on 90% or better of Grayson Heights. And the places that are the terrain.
10 feet, or 5 feet on each side of the power line, we're still gonna have power outages out there because the trees are 30 feet tall.
But here's what I'm trying to explain too, is on 3-phase power, minimum is an 8-foot cross arm. So that right there is 4 feet on each side of the pole to the power line. You know what I mean? So I don't understand the easements on that because
So
I can't cut it back 2 feet now.
5 feet off of the top of the power line, where it's 4 feet wide.
It's 10 feet off the line.
Terry's saying 10 feet off the line.
10 feet off of the actual line.
Off the actual line.
Per side?
Per side.
Per line.
Oh.
So if there's 4 lines running out through there, the
Yes.
furthest one out on that
So you're talking some
T-bar, T-pole, you got 10 feet on each side of that.
Are we gonna have any surveys?
No, we still have all the original surveys for Grayson Heights.
And that's where, Alan, I know, I'm sorry, but that's where I want, if we're gonna truly, which is what we need to do, if we're truly gonna do that full width, which I think has to be done, because like a maple tree, 6 feet a year. Once you cut a little limb off that big, it's 6 feet a year. You know, so I mean, it's a non-stop process. But if we don't go back the 10 feet, then this will be, I mean, it's every power company, you know, I mean, this is something that every power company deals with. And we're not talking about just taking down little maple tree limbs, you know, within that 10 feet, I'm sure that there's gonna be some trees. I mean, these are gonna be legit trees that people are gonna lose. So, I mean, as long as we're all in favor of enforcing the easement, then that is what it is. And it's gonna save power out there, and there you go.
That's it.
If the easement is established, it's established.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree 100%.
There's not a lot of dancing around.
And I guess I want to say the last thing, it's the same thing. You need to larger picture. It's just not electricity, because that's where the sewer lines run in Eastland Grace Heights, and you got the phone, and you got the cable. So it needs to be clean when you look at the picture of the easement. You need to have a larger picture of all of it, because that's all that point. Everything is connected. Okay? And last thing, so you don't have to work so hard. Just hire one of those guys that climbs up the tree and you can cut it down, and then they can clean it up later, and you have to worry about it. It's got to be cheaper than a machine and all this trouble. Just pay a guy that climbs up, and I've seen it. They do it.
Not very many guys do that anymore, though. We had a guy, he's not doing it much anymore. Out of Newcastle, so.
So as we understand, this issue is an issue that has been compounded over the years. Now that we've been made aware of the situation, we begin that process to start working forward on that. And you know, the bigger picture, as you said too, is our infrastructure. And it's all across the country. The infrastructure was put in 80, 90 years ago, hasn't been maintained because we figured it'd last that long, and now we're at an issue. You know, that's why we applied for this water grant, because of situations like that. So as these issues arise, we know they're going to arise. We're working our best to handle those as we.
Well, I think we've been aware of that for a while. We've had discussions about this before. It's just how we get here. It's what I'm concerned with now too, is how we get here, and then not go forward with it. I mean, because that's ridiculous.
Well, we need to develop an action plan, so.
It sounds like these guys need more help.
Yes.
That's true too, that's another problem too.
I mean, that's, you've got 2 guys working the whole electric crew for the town. If we've got these type of problems, then we need to get on.
I have a question. Can any of those lines be buried? Is it, okay. Okay. We don't.
They call it to maintain because it's difficult to maintain now. It's going to be 20 years from now. So yeah.
It's cost prohibitive, correct?
Depends on how you look at it. If you look at paying someone to do the tree trimming and then any kind of a rebuild on the existing, it's pretty close, you know. So yeah.
Long term.
Long term it is. Yeah, cheaper.
Buried.
Yeah.
This time we'll go ahead and close public comment. Move on to ordinance number 6, 2024.
Thanks, council.
My biggest thing would be something with lights to it, because if I send a letter, many bonds and easement, but like, screw you, you know? I mean, it needs to be, if you don't get it out within 1 month, you're gonna have to pay $100 a week. I think you know what I mean? That's police officers are used to being able to, there's a fine associated with not parking here, doing this or that, and we don't have that. You know,
It'll just be, it's a yard farm. It's just remove those. After 14 days or 30 days.
and not responsible for any of the items in it that become damaged.
And I mean, I think that I'd want to see the actual easement, I'd want to see some other things, but I mean, they're in the easement and you need to move it out of the way. I think you can move it out of the way. Yeah. It's nice that you just give them a little notice and say, look, in 2 weeks we're gonna move this thing and you can move it.
And if it falls apart, it's not our problem.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I guess that's, removed altogether.
This time, we're going to be introducing and adopting the wage and salary ordinance. I need a motion to suspend the rules, please.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Make a motion that we adopt the wage and salary ordinance number 6, 2024, effective 7/22, 7/27, and 8/6. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve wage and salary ordinance number 6, 2024. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. John, do you have anything for us?
So Julie, I don't know, I'm guessing that check did not come in today? Okay, I didn't really think it would. So for the airport board, we have a check coming in for $5,000 or $6,000, I forget the exact amount, for damage that was done to a control box down there with a semi that went down. And so the trucking company sent us an email and said they mailed the check out Friday. So hopefully we receive that check this week. That'll kind of close that. And then I'll be working on kind of the big rewrite, or how you want to phrase it, of the unsafe building, all of those type of things. Might get that hopefully to the plan commission later this month, and then it would come back to you guys for final adoption and approval. But working with Brian and Chris and Terry and others on that. So.
Basically, you can get more teeth, is what we're looking
Right,
at.
as many teeth as we can have and some clarity of what needs to happen. And I know Terry said he had a good meeting with Centerville's building commissioner and moving forward on some of that kind of stuff. So I want to make sure that we have that in place.
I like it.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Wayne County EDC.
We had a short meeting today, wasn't a lot that went on. Probably the main thing I remember was the farm lease for the Midwest Industrial Park. They had a meeting and 5 area farmers are interested in that, and that goes down for a bid. I think it's the 25th of August. So if you know any farmer, they had to be there at this meeting to be able to bid on it. So that's already passed. But, so that was pretty good turnout. That's about all I got. I'll forward you the minutes. There was a lot to do with the budget, but we won't go over that right now. I'll send that to you.
Thanks, sir. The Wayne County Chamber report, Parks and Recreation. Oh, we have it.
Brian's not here to have it.
Is that here? I didn't see it here.
There was no meeting for the Park Rec Board.
How did the Little League tournament go?
You know what? There was a lot of compliments on the field as usual. I mean, people just really like our field. We have a great field there. There was a few unruly fans, but you get those, especially when you're doing with Little League. But all in all, a lot of compliments on the facilities out there, as there usually is. Mike Beeson does a great job out there.
Keith, please start report.
Guess I'll start off with Jubilee weekend. It went really well, considering we had a lot of changes this year from the past. We had a few little kinks we worked out, nothing major. Really, at least on my end, the only issues we had was just a couple traffic things, but that's kind of every year. I felt that, again, from my perspective, that the location this year, I felt worked really well. It appeared to be well attended, because we've got a front row seat, because where town hall was at, where it was right there. So it did look like it was received well. Had another nice parade. No issues there. So I was real pleased with the Jubilee weekend. Again, the town employees with street and electric and utilities and everything, they did another wonderful job. They help us with stuff outside of their actual scope of their job every year for that. So I really appreciate all the effort they do to make sure it's easier for us to shut down streets, enforce no parking and that. So it was a great team effort over the weekend. Update on the railroad crossings. They have finished with South Street. If you haven't been through there, it's now drivable. It looks pretty decent. Still a little high in my opinion, but I don't know if that can be fixed, but it's not rough. You can get over without blowing tires, etc. They're currently working on the one right on Washington Street by Auto Car. It's supposed to be done by the end of the week. I'm told that they're fixing that whole area, not just the actual track, but out in front of it on the north side is probably the worst part of that crossing. I'm being told they're fixing that also. So hopefully that'll take care of all that issues down there, and we'll be done finally with the railroad crossing issues. Officer Marsh and the new K-9 finished their school last Friday, and he's now certified and ready to go and on the road. There's a lot of people need to thank for that, because once again that was purchased with all grant donations, fundraisers, etc. So the new dog we got, Trooper, I'm not a big fan of the name because it's Trooper, but great dog, very young, so we should get multiple years of use out of him, and he's very sharp. I was going to have him come tonight and bring K9 so you guys can see it, but then we had an unexpected crowd, so I think we'll do that at the next meeting. But extremely social. He's just a great fit, and I think once everybody sees it, the community, they're going to love the dog.
What kind of dog is it?
He is a Dutch Shepherd, which is kind of a mix between the Belgian Malinois and the regular Shepherd. I like to say he's got Shepherd's intelligence and the Malinois' athletics, so it's a kind of a perfect match. The other thing, I told you several months back, HPD received money from the Wayne County opiate settlement money. We did receive that money. Most of the items I had requested have already been ordered. A portion of them has already came in, getting that paid. That also took care of the final payment on the K9 as well. But that saved us, that was $20-some thousand that my budget or the town didn't have to spend for the items that we got. A lot of those things, every department has things that are necessities and then things that'd be nice to have that we could use, but it's not going to shut us down if we don't have it. So a lot of the items that I used that money to get was for that stuff. For example, a couple extra portable radios. We got new patrol rifles for the SROs to be placed into the schools and their safes and their offices. Just stuff that we've always wanted, but we just haven't been able, at this point, to find the money for. So we thank the Wayne County Commissioners for approving and getting us that money. And then the last thing is, been working real hard over the summer. I'm sure everybody knows we have a huge problem with abandoned vehicles on the property, not so much on the roadway, but on property. And that's a long process to remove that. So we've been working over the last several months of, it's beginning of the summer, myself and Wayne targeting a lot of those, getting letters out, starting the process and the steps. So we're hoping that we're making progress. We'll start seeing less and less of that. And then also we've been attacking the ones that have actually on the roadway. That's a lot quicker fix. We tag a vehicle on abandoned, inoperable, expired plates, etc., parked on the roadway. We can tag that, and if it's still there in 72 hours, it's towed at the owner's expense. And we've began doing that. And so if you, throughout town, if you happen to see a vehicle on the road that's got an orange sticker, you'll know that its days are numbered. But on the property, it's a little more difficult, but we have started that process. A lot of times we don't just drive around town constantly looking in people's backyards for a vehicle. Something has that. We generally try to act off of complaints, and then we go and verify it and we move forward. But with that, I've discovered that a lot of properties have kind of fallen through the cracks because, for whatever reason, people aren't complaining on them because they're in the alley, so that the general public don't always see it, just the neighbors. So I've started driving the alleys a lot more, taking notice of those properties and going towards it. So hopefully we'll start seeing some improvement in some of that area. I've worked with Terry on several properties. We've kind of got a little program going now. If he has an issue, I help him get the citation sent, doing some of the things. So I think having, Terry now has been a great addition to me because some of the stuff that I think is kind of borderline, whether it's me or him, I can kind of throw on his plate, and he's went out and seen what he can do and taken care of it. So that's relieved some of the stuff that I've been doing to be able to focus more on stuff that's 100% my responsibility. So I thank him for that. Other than that, I emailed you our call report. It feels like it was a busy month, call-wise. I always like it when we don't have a lot of calls. That's a good thing, but we have been busy. We've had a lot of transition with Tyler, been at canine school. This is time of year people want to take vacations, so our schedule has been kind of trying the last couple months, but we've maintained our usual coverage and handled everything as we're required to do and should do with no issues. School starts back, tomorrow. We've got things in place for that. For tomorrow, we always like to have a little more presence, at the schools. I've moved radar sign back to the school zone area and some of the stuff that we just do through normal through the school year. I had a couple meetings over the summer with school superintendent. We've made a couple adjustments to a few of the little requirements of the SROs, mainly just a couple events they'd like to see them present at that they currently weren't required to be at. So I've met with the SROs, got that worked out. For example, like one of the things is you'll now see the SROs present for the prom, for graduation, for parents' night, some of those little things. Because it's also important for the parents to get to know who the SROs are, not just the students and the teachers. So we're trying to incorporate them more in some of the family type events so that the parents get to know them as well. So we've made a couple changes there. So I think it'll be positive for us also for this school year. Other than that, that's all I have.
If I could piggyback onto Keith's remarks about Jubilee Days, I think we would be remiss as a community if we did not thank a few people. Obviously the town employees, Keith's department did a great job during the parade. The employees that just really set things up to get the parade going. Sabi Singh, the owner of the Rendezvous, footed the bill for most of the well, I think for everything at the kids zone. I know the American Legion footed the bill for the fireworks. I really think that as an event, that went off very well, and honestly, those people that stepped up, and then last but not least, Jeremy Jennings. He's the one that kind of spearheaded this whole thing, and anybody that wants to give praise really needs to start there, because Jeremy really put this together on really 8 weeks of notice, and I think he really pulled that together very well. So, like I said, kudos to everyone that was involved. So,
Rick, fire department report.
Okay, I gave you a copy of our report for the month of July. Runs were up, only up a couple. We're still averaging between 15 and 20 runs a month, sometimes 25. EMS calls are up a little bit this month, so we're staying with an average of about, like I said, 18 or 20 calls a month, which is way above our average that was several years ago, let's put it that way. Speaking of trees and stuff, we did get out for a weather-related incidents a couple times. We had a tree fall on a car at the park, come in with entrapment, but they had the gentleman out when we got out there. So, and we did have we were in a couple of tornado warnings twice, and we set our sirens off over here. And I want people to realize that when that siren is going on continually, the first of each month we test it. But if that siren goes off when it's raining and storming out, and it goes off continuous, it's not the time to come out and look and wait for us to come driving by. It's the time to take safety, because there's something close by. Luckily that we've not been affected so far, like Winchester and other communities have been. So when that weather warning goes off and it's a constant siren, that means that we're doing that for a purpose and for a reason. Our membership, we're still down 2 regular members. We're getting ready to add a new cadet, 16-year-old junior up here at the high school for our cadet program. Hopefully he'll turn out to be a good one, and when he graduates or turns 18, that we can bring him on as a full-time volunteer. Our apparatus, we are, knock on wood, so far they're okay. We're still looking at options for the grass truck. We put some money into it. It's usable. How long that's going to last, I don't know. I mean, the mechanics that worked on it, they're not going to guarantee it. So, our grant, our FEMA grant that we applied for, they have started announcing the awards. They're putting out several awards every Friday. So far, we've not heard anything on our award. There have been some communities in our area that have received some of the grant awards, so we'll just keep hoping that that'll come along. Fireworks, one thing I want to talk about is first time that I've ever, in the 4th of July, had to turn cars away from the park or from the airport. We could not get anybody else down there. So we were referring them to, a lot of them are referring to over at up to the high school parking lot where they could still watch. But we could not get any more cars in that place. So I think one thing that needs to be done is somebody's going to have to come down and start parking cars when people aren't coming in. Cars coming down earlier. People parking their cars, taking up room where you could put 5 cars, and it takes a lot of space. We've been doing it. Alan's been helping do it. I've been doing it. It's not our responsibility to park the cars down there. We're for public safety. We help Keith's guys when it's over with get cars out of there as fast as we can. But the main thing is when people start coming in and places to park, whoever is responsible for that is going to have to start taking some responsibility and either getting volunteers or doing it themselves. So it's a lot of work doing that. So.
It is, and I'm glad you brought up. I did forget about it. This was out of all the fireworks years that I've been here, the one that I felt like had the potential to be the most unsafe. We had cars parking in the crop fields that we had to run out and go over, and that's difficult when in a matter of 10, 15 minutes you have 30, 40 cars that's now in the wheat field. It's kind of hard to deal with that. Part of that, moving forward next year, work with the town guys as far as blocking off that north part instead of leaving it open like we did this year. In the past, I used to always deal with the Boy Scouts used to always do parking. I would get them the glow sticks and all the vests and all this stuff. And like with everything, those groups and organizations just aren't there anymore, and you just can't find the volunteers, like Rick was saying, to do it. But I feel moving forward, that's going to be something to where we're going to have to get that in place or seriously consider the future of the event, because if it continues like it did this year and keeps growing, it's a when something bad is going to end up happening, not if. Because this year in that regard was kind of a nightmare, and I'm afraid we're going to end up with property damage. There was a ton of issues this year. That was the largest crowd I've ever seen, and we just don't have the manpower, to be able to be everywhere where we need to be for that many people. And if it wasn't for the fire department, we'd have really been hurting, because they did do a huge part on the traffic control, both coming in and going out for us. But I'm not positive whose event that is. But I know some of the events that we have, we require them, to have staffing for certain things. And I think moving forward, that's going to have to be something that we address, is if we're going to have fireworks, some organization or whoever's putting on that fireworks is going to have to find somebody to help with the parking and controlling that, or we're going to have to look at other avenues.
If we would have had a medical emergency like on that east side, I don't even know if we'd got a truck or an ambulance down there, the way people were parking. So.
Chris, is that considered a Legion event?
Always has been. Yeah, I mean, they pay for the fireworks. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it might be a good idea that we invite them to a special meeting, and we kind of sit down with them, and Rick, Keith obviously being involved, we can kind of talk through this, so that in the future they understand that it's great that you're doing this event, but you need to provide some people there. Is there any way maybe you could reach out to? I know.
Oh yeah, I would have no problem talking to him about it. It's just a matter of, I think the best thing was probably when the Boy Scouts helped with parking, but it's trying to get someone to organize all of it, I think, is the main thing.
Well, again, it goes back to if the Legion it's funding the event, then it's their event, so they'll need to provide some coverage there. And if they can't, then it brings in the question is, can we continue to do the event if we don't have anybody there? I know Bill is in charge of Legion. I don't know if he can maybe send some representatives to a special meeting that we have. That way we can just kind of sit down and just talk about that.
Sure.
I mean, I know but I think it's a fair ask by you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was a legitimate free-for-all this year. And, I think part of it too was last minute. I think a couple of the surrounding communities canceled because of weather, and that threw everybody here. And on top of that, I heard multiple comments that, we do have a great fireworks show.
Right.
And so a lot of people like to come to it for that. But, another thing is maybe even, looking down the road at, a different venue. Like I said here, like for Jubilee Day and the overflow for 4th of July, people, went to the high school or stuff. If we found an area, for example, the football field where they shot the fireworks off from, you could see them from surrounding areas in the community that might keep from everybody just going to one little spot to see it. It gives us, you know, more options, people, high school here, their front yards, etc. Maybe, you know, that's something to look at least trying it 1 year and just seeing how that works. But this year it was a bad situation.
Yeah, I would hate to, lose it. Legion's done a good job putting it on. I know they raise money through fundraisers to put it on, so, and, most towns, if you look like Richmond, their American Legion sponsors their fireworks too, so, and the Legions are doing good things for the community, so, I think it's just gonna take some sitting down and talking to some people and working it out. So.
I agree, 100%.
One last thing is, and I listened to Keith talk about, and it bothered me a little bit. I mean, we're talking about like funds given away from the county, like for opioid, for COVID, all that back in. Everybody gets it, but the volunteer fire departments. When we go on overdose calls, when an overdose in your town, our trucks are going out the door. That's part of our procedure, when EMS procedure, that we get nothing in return when money's given out. During COVID, when COVID money was getting out, my guys were out there putting their, get at risk of getting contacted when we're going out on EMS call during COVID money was getting out. We never saw a dime of anything.
We didn't either on that. So
yeah,
I'll second you there.
Sit back in the car.
So I don't know, I just want the counts kind of realize that sometimes if there's money out there and, there's just more than we're here also, and we're doing public service for our community, and I'm glad Keith got the money, and it was well spent on equipment, much needed equipment, so, but it's just been that way for a while. When stuff happens, we're kind of just left out in the cold, so. That's all I got, Alan.
Thanks, sir. Mike in the Tennessee, when he's stuck in Toronto, but I did send the email. He talked about the great turnout for the fireworks, kind of echoing the comments already said. He mentioned that the Wilbur Wright flying was canceled for weather concerns. The AA had their monthly pancake breakfast with about 40 aircraft flying in. They had a little issue with the airport lights, but it's been fixed. And then all hangar spaces have been rented out at this time. Advisory Planning Commission.
I wasn't there. Where do you have?
Oh, planning?
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about trees that need to be trimmed back for safety. And we talked about Pizza King has a new address. And that we need to spend a lot more time on the unsafe buildings.
Thank you. Chris, report.
Sure, down at the wastewater treatment plant, we did get the fence finally installed and up around the Dana lift station. One thing we're trying to do is make our lift stations and any of our manholes that are in obscure hidden locations, trying to secure those just so people can't be dumping any kind of hazardous waste in them. So we're glad to have that done. We've had issues with slow flow on the north side of town. A lot of times during the summer when the high school's closed, we do have slow flow issues, and so we're having to pop a lot of manholes, check out jet vac truck a lot up in that area, primarily on North Elm and North Sycamore Streets. Crystal has passed her second wastewater treatment certification, so she is now able to totally monitor the wastewater treatment plant. So Jim Soper has helped us out during the interim time, and we won't need his assistance anymore, which is good. The water department, we've had multiple smaller water leaks on the south side of town. We do have some really good news about the lead service line inspection. Luke was able to find the old books, all the old original books from when the water lines were installed. So probably 95% of the service lines out there, we do know from record now what material they were. We're not seeing any lead, which is good. We'll go through those a little bit more thoroughly in the weeks to come. We're still waiting to see if we've been awarded the Okra Water grant. Hopefully we'll find out something here in about a month, I think, when we'll find out on that. Electric department, we already discussed a lot of that. Tree trimming, a lot of tree related incidents. They have been assisting some other departments. Streets department, repairs, weed eating, weed spraying. I did apply for another community crossings grant. You can kind of see the areas down through here there that we applied for grants. We have had issues with, and I'm going to see if Bob maybe could write an article about this in the newspaper. We've had a lot of issues with Frontier and Comcast lines that have gotten extremely low, where trash trucks are afraid to go through alleys. We have some lines, poles that have been down for a year, and despite my attempts, numerous homeowners' attempts to remedy those lines, they're still hanging low, and we have pole issues. One up on Dalton Road is probably the worst one. As Keith's mentioned, my guys have helped a lot with the Jubilee Days preparation, trying to get that all done. Terry and I did meet with Gerald Millsaps from Centerville. It was very informative about condemning houses. I'll let him speak a little bit more on that here in a minute. I did submit a Eli Lilly endowment grant for the museum building for some upgrades on that. Working with the EDC on an abandoned house removal grant. Terry and I are both working on that. And another thing I didn't have on here, but I just wanted to mention it, we have had several complaints about the stray cat issue here in Hagerstown. A lot of the abandoned houses that Terry and I are trying to get knocked down have stray cats living in them. So that's something that I have discussed with one county commissioner. I'm going to try to discuss it with another one as well. And Terry, I don't know if you want to elaborate any on the blighted housing grants that we're trying to get.
Well, we've begun the process as is directed by the EDC, and actually we have issued the notices. They have 15 days to reply. If at the end of those 15 days they don't reply, we can go ahead and move forward with the process. We'll probably do title search. We have to notify anybody that has any fee interest in the property. We have to do that twice in the Western Wayne News. And at which point, if we don't get an appeal or any resistance, we will go ahead and put out for public bid for to have those torn down, at which point we give that paperwork to the EDC. The EDC, I assume at that point, approves it, and then we proceed. It's all a matter of the resistance we get between here and there.
Did you have any questions about my report? I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay.
Terry, any information you'd like to share with us?
Maybe just one more. We are working on the unsafe buildings. Believe me, we have put hours into this. Tomorrow I'm being audited by FEMA. So they have proposed that we adopt an ordinance. I have a copy of the ordinance. I'm going to tell them tomorrow during the audit that it's to go in front of the town council, that we need 30, 60, 90 days. Okay, so we don't have an answer, but they have proposed that we adopt their ordinance.
The advantage in adopting their ordinance would be?
Evidently, our ordinance is not acceptable to FEMA, and if we were to have a disaster, they could withhold federal funds.
Gotcha. And you'll get a copy of that tomorrow, you said? Or-
I've got a copy now, but it's a book, and I don't know, I gotta be honest, I'm not technical savvy enough to email that out. I'll try to have somebody help me do that tomorrow.
Anything else?
Do you have any questions?
I got a question. You mentioned that there's some stuff that we need to be doing for codes and practices. Do you have an outline of what we need to do? Let's get on that so we can get you the tools to do the work.
I do have an outline of it. I mean, not in front of me.
No, but I mean, do you know what you need, what you want us to do?
Yes, sir.
Because if that's the case, then we need to get on that so we can put you on it with those new
Well,
practices.
just one small example is the ordinance says that Hagerstown still provides the meter base to the customer for a service upgrade. And after talking to Joe and some other people, I guess Hagerstown hadn't done that. Didn't do that when I worked here, and that's been 15 years ago.
Those are the type of things we need to know. So
We need to take that out of the ordinance.
If there's anything administratively that you need put in an ordinance to do your job better, then we will make sure that you have that tool in your box.
Amen.
We put that on the priority so we can move forward. There's no sense in dragging this out. You think you got it ready, give it to us so we can have him look at it, bless it, and we can bless it, and let's get moving on
I
this.
submitted in the morning. Thank you.
We do, I mean, there's a lot of quality of life issues here that's getting away from us. And, you know, you just walk around town, or you ride your bike, or golf cart, whatever it is, however you get around town, there's a lot of things that's disturbing. And we've got crap in people's yards, you've got things that are impeding sidewalks. There's a lot of things that need to go. I'm not throwing it all on you, because this is something that just didn't happen overnight, but we want to give you the tools to fix those problems.
Here.
Julie?
Gretchen Saunders started July 22nd as a new billing clerk. And I have a budget for the 2025. We'll have a hearing next council meeting. For that, I have my meeting with DLGF like a couple of weeks before our next meeting, so I don't know if anybody has any questions on.
Is that just our introduction, or is that our?
That's the introduction, and then the next.
October.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll.
Yeah, how'd you do it?
How to do what?
The $40,000 cut.
Well, he didn't buy a car.
No, well, that's good.
Any questions? And the next regular council meeting will be Tuesday, September 3rd, at 6:30, with a public hearing before that for the 2025 budget. Everybody have a chance to review the claims?
Before we do that, if you don't mind, we got something in our box from Nail Creek Music Boosters asking for sponsorship for their group there, the band. I don't know if you guys all have a copy of that in front of you or not, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different levels of commitment that they're asking for help with. I know we've done this in the past with other groups. By all means, I'll pass it around if you guys want to take a look at that, see if we want to act on anything today on that.
We are going to have to start to make us available live as well as archived meetings. So Julie has given you all a copy of the ordinance.
That starts in 2025, correct?
Yes.
Right, July.
Yeah, July 2025.
January.
The July or January?
January.
I thought it was July.
No.
Isn't it July?
Shoot, I thought it was in place now.
No, it's in 2025.
Yeah, if you look at the,
It is July.
Okay, yeah. So we just
Nobody
need
can
to
have it
be,
done this year, so they get an extension.
And if I'm correct, it's any meeting that's in a facility that's owned by the municipality, correct?
right, the council has
Correct.
somebody this time.
Yeah.
And I gave that to John. But it has to be live, right? Live streaming?
Yes.
so it says, if the governing body does not have internet capability for live transmission meetings, then shall record, but I mean, technically, you guys have internet capability,
Yeah.
so we just have to figure out a way to actually do it. I mean, some groups I'm sure will use just Facebook Live or something like that. I mean,
Right.
It doesn't have to be anything over the top, but it just has to be out there and available.
Any questions?
I know we're kind of in between two different things here. The music boosters too, that's, that's something we want to do. Give that to you as well. I know with certain groups, we've done some donation level. I mean, typically it's like $500 to Heartbreak Hill 5K that
Right.
they do. I mean, the there's a $500 level here.
I think we've done one before.
Have we done one before for them? Do you know what we did there? Probably not, no.
I know they sent us a thing.
I mean, I would make a motion that we do the quarter note, which is the $500 level. I mean, that's what we've kind of done in the past with other groups. But I would make a motion that we donate $500 to the Nettle Creek Music Boosters.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we grant $500 to the Music Boosters program. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Jennifer lives next door to me, she's the
Okay.
president.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Awesome. There we go. I thought she lived down by him, so.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Claims, everybody have a chance?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve claims as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?